And we are back from break on the Infowars Nightly News. We're joined now by the two filmmakers of Thrive, which really takes a deep look at what we could do for alternative systems of energy and an altogether reformed system itself. As there's so many problems here on Earth, there's so many potentials, but how do we tap into that, and how do we defeat the system that is currently occupying our world and preventing us from reaching that further development? We are joined now by Foster Gamble and his wife Kimberly Gamble, both who put together the film Thrive. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having us on.
So, yeah, certainly appreciate you joining us. There's a whole history of hidden occult technology, suppressed free energy, going back to Tesla and John Worrell Keeley and so many other inventors, probably mostly 100 years ago and even more. And here we are today with our problems just growing and growing. And it seems we're unable to tap into that. We know it has to do with the entrenched interest and the way things have grown up around that issue. So let's kind of lay out the groundwork and then start to talk about what could be done about it.
Great.
Well, you mean in relation to free energy, the key to that area of solutioning, as well as so many others for us, as we lay out in the movie, is an understanding of this toroidal form, this donut-shaped vortex, which is apparently the fundamental shape that sustainable systems must acquire in order to last in a healthy way throughout our universe, you know, from atoms to the clustering of galaxies. So one application of that understanding of kind of the blueprint of enduring healthy systems is that there are numerous inventors, have been for over a century, and maybe way back even to ancient cultures, or who mimic this pattern with various types of materials and then put their technologies into resonance, either rotating at a certain frequency or vibrating at a certain frequency, getting into a certain harmonization of a sequence of magnets and so forth, in such a way that the natural toroidal shape of how energy flows and dances in our universe is mimicked by a device. And then the device, when tuned properly, can actually start pouring out electricity cleanly and safely. So this has been done by numerous inventors. We've been able to be into some of those labs and see them firsthand, and it just moves you to tears when you realize we don't need to be fighting over other people's oil. We don't need to be creating asthma and destroying our atmosphere and so forth. These technologies already exist. However, they are virtually all being brutally suppressed. These laboratories are being raided by SWAT teams. The equipment is being stolen. The patents are being suppressed and so forth. So we're in a political dilemma, kind of where the electric car was, you know, 40 years ago, and now we're seeing the electric cars are finally starting to come out, even though we had them, you know, decades ago. I have no question that we have access to these so-called zero-point or radiant, these new energy technologies. Now we've just got to get enough social will, enough financial support behind these inventors to secure their labs and to get these technologies completed and out there so that people have access to them, and we can drastically reduce our electric and fuel bills, and also have proof that we're living actually in a universe of infinite abundance.
But we've been told progress is about greater centralization of government, but actually this film shows, and all the research I've done shows, that getting independent, getting decentralized, going back to the local, and the idea of having that technology at a personal and community level is really what would give us what I would consider anyway true progress. Your responses to that?
Talk about that at all?
Yeah, well, I think that, you know, one of the things that we've done is we really embedded Thrive within a context of solutions, because I think that when people realize that there is so much that they can do on a local level and in their personal lives, it actually allows them to be more open to the information. I know for me, the way this started was that I used to work with abused and homeless kids. And when I did that, I subscribed to various magazines and periodicals all about the state of children in the world. And I could just devour those magazines and then go to work because I felt like there was some impact that I could have on the situation. And as soon as I wasn't doing that work anymore, the periodicals and magazines were still coming, and I couldn't even look at them. I just couldn't take it in. And it really showed me how people need to feel that they can have an impact on a problem to even be able to take in the information about how bad it is. And so what we're finding, like with Thrive and with the work that you do and others, that as people are getting informed, they're also realizing that there's so many solutions, and we've developed this whole solutioning model, and a lot of it has to do with local communities organizing around issues that are relevant to them right there. Certainly that has to do with energy as well.
Right, and we see other problems too, like impoverished parts of Africa or Latin America, where people come with true charitable intentions, bringing technology, but through the divide and conquer model, you've got competing gangs and globalist entities who encourage the wiping out of those villages, suppressing even those kind of solutions.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you know, Aaron, when you were talking about that decentralization, one of the women who's in our film, an evolutionary biologist, Elizabeth Saturas, she says, I think very cleverly, that when you go out into the forest, good luck finding the boss. You know, it's a self-creating symbiotic system. And I think that to whatever degree we even centralize resistance to the centralized system, we're more vulnerable. But what we're thrilled to see happening, and I know that you're seeing this with your vast network as well, that people are creating independent, self-generating Thrive solutions groups in cities, in counties, in states, and in countries all over the world, inspired by the information that they're getting from sources like yours and ours, but then also moving on to use a solutions model that is based on how nature works. This same torus that I was referring to, it has kind of a twin. And for the scientists in the group, it's called the vector equilibrium. And that's kind of how nature structures the material world. So we've come up with a solutions model. I think you have a picture of it, if you can bring it up on your screen. That, first of all, in 3 dimensions, it's called the sector navigator. And we show it in the movie in computer graphics. And there are 12 spheres, what we call representing the sectors of human endeavor. And it's justice and economics and science and media and spirituality and so forth. It really seems to cover all of human endeavor. And in our solutions approach, we invite people in their communities to come together who are inspired to turn things around, then self-identify as to which sector they're drawn to. What are they passionate about? What are they good at? And then to meet in subgroups with people who are in that sector. And then further to identify, okay, am I someone who wants to work on immediate needs? Am I a doctor who wants to go to Africa and work with Doctors Without Borders, or serve food in a soup kitchen or something like that? Or am I someone who would rather work on the systemic level, working on the corruption in the economic system or in the media system or in the governance system and so forth? Or am I someone at the third level who feels talented with helping people expand their worldview, to deepen their knowledge, what we call the consciousness shift? And what we've been finding is that as people find their particular niche and realize that all of the other sectors and the other levels are also going to be being handled by highly skilled and passionate people, there's a sense of profound relaxation where one can go about doing your part in communication with sectors that are doing all of the other parts, but knowing that nobody has to do the whole thing. So this is something that we're really excited about, and seeing just inspire people and help people to organize all over the country and all over the world.
Right.
Yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to say we used that model effectively when we were being sprayed with the light brown apple moth aerial spray assault that happened over Northern California. And the Monterey, Santa Cruz, and Marin counties organized using this model. And within 6 months, a program that was fundamentally funded through Homeland Security, had hundreds of millions of dollars behind it, was shut down in 6 months. And I know through the Freedom of Information Act, when we saw some of the inside correspondence, we saw one email that said that they had anticipated resistance, but they didn't know it would be so well organized. And I think that it really had to do with the fact that, you know, people need to know there's something that they can do about it, but not only that, but that they can do what they're good at and are naturally drawn to, instead of that each person is supposed to have to take on the whole thing, which, you know, you burn out and we can't do. So I think that having seen it and experienced it ourselves, and now watching other communities get into it, I'm excited, because I feel like more and more people are waking up to what is going on and are ready to engage in these meaningful and localized solutions.
Well, I totally agree, because it's not a question of what we're capable of. It's a question of what aren't we capable of. The system knows that. You've got John D. Rockefeller saying competition is a sin, and you've got this whole model taking, just for instance, the Maslow hierarchy of needs and turning it on its end to keep us focused on our basic needs, so we can't reach those higher levels. And so how do we fight that integrated system? Because they've taken all the major power companies, consolidated them, and integrated those agenda. We were talking earlier about some of the interlocked boards.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because oftentimes people look at the failures of the system and say, oh, the people in charge must be really incompetent or stupid or something. And you know, your programs there have done a good job of actually showing that these people are very shrewd, they're very dedicated, and they got a ton of money in their think tanks. But what they've been doing in their think tanks, obviously, is analyzing, okay, what are all the major sectors of human endeavor, and how can we take them over in order that we can destroy people and consolidate, destroy so many people's lives, consolidate wealth for ourselves, and then control people. Well, we're doing just the opposite. We're taking the same whole systems approach, realizing that all these sectors fit together, but we're coming at it looking to see how can we empower people at the individual level, and then create the new systems as the old systems are crumbling down, either intentionally or just through their own corruption. As they're coming down, we need to be emerging the new systems that are based on integrity and based on personal freedom, but also where the sectors they're all covered and they're all in touch with one another. So that's why I'm thrilled to see that this same model that works so well in stopping this initiative to spray 7 million people in Northern California for 10 years with poison out of an airplane. That was a George W. Bush Jr. Personal earmark, with $300 million in the first year dedicated to doing this thing, that a group of citizens, especially once the moms got involved and started coming to the demonstrations, you know, with their kids in strollers, basically saying, no way you're going to dump poison on my kids. You know, this model, with all the creativity and expertise that got freed up, was able to stop that whole onslaught in 6 months. And I'm confident that this same sort of model, which is so efficient in organizing people's initiative and creativity like a laser as opposed to just a flashlight, I'm confident that when this sort of organization spreads around the world, that and it already is. I just got back last weekend from sharing this model with a National Occupy Summit up in Olympia. And they were very excited by the organizational implications, because they're dealing with so many different issues and struggling as to how to organize and coordinate them. So it's this sort of activity and just the initiative of just millions and millions of people across the planet waking up right now that actually have me being more confident than I've been in the last 15 years that we can turn this thing around.
Yeah, and I just want to add that, Thrive as a movie is also, we think of it, it's almost like a trailer for the website, thrivemovement.com, where you can explore all of these solution strategies and learn about success stories, as well as see the movie or share it or do any of the research. We have a resource tree there that has all of the books, videos, organizations, and people that we use to get informed. So it's really a resource for people to understand what's happening, but also to realize how much there is going on that is working, and how effective people can be once they figure out what's happening and organize with that information. So it's more leveraged in how they're focusing their time and energy. So thrivemovement.com is like the whole other half of the offering.
Right. And I love the questions you bring up in the film, because on the one hand, you've got the level where it's the 99%. You mentioned the Occupy movement. On the other hand, you clearly identify we have to have individual rights. We have to have a respect for documents like the Bill of Rights. That's very important to where we need to go from here. If we leave that behind, we lose it all. Now, I want to turn, I don't want to mean to do a sins of the father thing, but just to make an example of Procter and Gamble, because that's where you come from, we've got a lot of challenges there too. You've got the Clarence J. Gamble legacy of being part of eugenics and really coercively hurting people. You guys are trying to turn that question around and empower people, which I think is obviously the right question. How do we deal with issues that you have current members of the Procter and Gamble board working with Monsanto when obviously that's one of our big problems?